Human accepts alien girl's invitation to eat, but human learns the meal begins a life bond. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's return to our main character. The storm hit the outpost like a rolling sheet of light, every gust crackling with static that lifted the fine hairs on Evan Cole's arms. He pushed through the corridor with his toolbox banging against his thigh, the emergency lights pulsing red every 2 seconds like a heartbeat trying to restart itself. A wall panel hissed open from pressure changes, letting in a draft of cold air that smelled faintly metallic, like rain hitting old copper. He knelt beside the damaged power regulator, the casing still warm from its last overloaded surge. His breath fogged in the chilled air even inside the insulation of his suit. The storm wasn't supposed to hit this hard, just a minor ion front sweeping across the surface of Lyra 6. But forecasts meant little out here. The planet did what it wanted. Evan wiped frost from his visor and glanced through the cracked window. The sky outside shimmered in waves of pale green, streaked with violet arcs that danced across the horizon. And standing in that shimmering light, motionless as a carved statue, was the alien girl who had arrived at the outpost only 3 days before. Salif. She didn't move even as the wind tugged her long white hair behind her, the strands glowing faintly under the charged atmosphere. Her skin, smooth and translucent like polished stone tinted with a hint of turquoise and amethyst, seemed untouched by the cold. Evan swallowed and returned to the regulator, tightening a loose coupling until the gauge steadied, the lights flickering back to life in a soft hum. The hum barely lasted a breath before the door slid open with a subtle chime. Salith stepped inside, her presence shifting the temperature of the room just enough that he noticed. Not warmth, more like the quiet calm after lightning strikes nearby. Human, she said, her voice low but carrying, shaped like something meant to be sung rather than spoken. You repaired the heart of this place. Evan pushed himself up, brushing dust from his gloves. Just doing my job, he said, though her stare made him feel like he'd done something far more significant. Her golden eyes tracked him with deliberate focus, a slow, studying look that almost made him forget the storm outside. Salith tilted her head slightly. Then you will eat with me. It wasn't phrased like a request, more like an expectation carved into tradition. Evan blinked. Eat? With you? She nodded once, stepping closer, the faint light catching the subtle iridescence across her skin. You restored what keeps us alive. A meal is offered. He hesitated, not because he felt threatened, but because her presence carried an intensity he wasn't used to, a gravity. Still, refusing seemed impolite. Sure, he said, giving a small shrug. Yeah, I'd be glad to. Something shifted in her expression. Brief, almost like the tightening of a breath. The room's lights brightened, responding to her proximity. For a moment, neither moved. The storm outside cracked again, casting the entire corridor in a wash of green light. Salith stepped back, her gaze never leaving him. Then the life bond begins, she whispered. Evan froze. The what? But she had already turned, her silhouette framed by the pulsing glow of the storm as she walked toward the dining chamber, expecting him to follow, completely unaware that the human behind her had no idea what he had just agreed to. The corridor lights dimmed as Salith moved ahead of Evan, her silhouette gliding with an effortless stillness that made the narrow hallway feel smaller. The storm outside cracked again, a soft shimmer of green light slipping through every seam of the outpost. Evan followed, his boots tapping lightly against the metal floor, each step echoing louder in his own ears than it should have. He kept replaying her last words. The life bond begins. Maybe it was a translation glitch. Maybe her universal translator had mixed up a word. He hoped so, though a part of him could not ignore the way she had said it, quiet but certain, like announcing a ceremony she had waited for. As they entered the small dining chamber, the lights responded to Salith's presence, brightening in gentle pulses. The long metal table at the center had been transformed. A soft cloth lay over it, woven from some alien material that shimmered like frost under sunlight. In its center sat a bowl of purple luminescent fruit, each piece glowing faintly, casting a warm hue that painted both of them in soft violet. Salith gestured to a seat. "Sit, Evan Cole." He did, lowering himself slowly. The chair was warmer than he expected, as if heated from within. Salith remained standing for a moment, as though observing him in a way that felt ritualistic but not threatening. There was no aggression in her posture, no sign of dominance. Only intent. She finally sat across from him, hands folded with a stillness that did not belong to anyone rushed or uncertain. Evan cleared his throat. "So this is dinner?" She nodded once. "It is shared sustenance, a joining of breath and warmth." He blinked. "That is a poetic way to describe a meal." "It is not a description," she said softly. "It is the meaning." Salith lifted one of the glowing fruits and held it delicately between her fingers. She examined it briefly, then extended her hand halfway across the table, offering it to him. The gesture was simple, but something in the air tightened, the faint hum of the outpost's machinery softening as if listening. Evan hesitated. His instincts tugged both ways. Refusing would be rude. Accepting felt like stepping into something he did not understand. But Salith's expression held no pressure, only patience. He reached out and took the fruit from her hand. Their fingertips brushed for just a fraction of a moment, but it felt like something clicked in the air, a quiet change in temperature that sent a soft chill up his arms. Salith exhaled, slow and controlled. "Your touch confirms the choosing." Evan's grip tightened slightly around the fruit. "Choosing what exactly?" Salith did not answer immediately. Her eyes, bright gold with a faint inner glow, studied him with a look that held a mix of curiosity and something far older. "Evan Cole," she said at last, "in my culture, a shared meal is not nourishment alone. It is intention. It is recognition. It is invitation." Invitation to what? Her gaze lowered to the fruit in his hand, then returned to meet his eyes. To walk beside one another beyond this moment. Evan felt his pulse jump. "That sounds very serious for a bowl of glowing grapes." Salith tilted her head, the faintest hint of warmth touching her expression. "Your language calls them grapes. Ours calls them heartfire. Symbol of trust." The storm outside rumbled again, but softer now, like distant surf instead of thunder. Evan set the fruit gently on the table. "Salith, I did not know this meant anything important." "Your ignorance does not offend," she said. "But your acceptance carries weight." He took a slow breath. "What kind of weight?" She folded her hands again, the faint glow of the fruit casting moving shadows across her skin. The kind that binds two lives to a path they choose together. The room felt smaller. The table felt shorter. And for the first time since arriving on Lyra 6, Evan realized he might have stepped into a story much larger than he understood. The glow of the heartfire fruit flickered across the table, reflecting softly in Salith's golden eyes as she waited for Evan's answer. The hum of the outpost generators dipped for a moment, settling into a steady rhythm that matched the uneasy beat in his chest. Evan rubbed his thumb over the smooth surface of the fruit. It felt warmer now, as if holding it made the temperature shift slightly toward his hand. He set it back down carefully, not wanting to trigger another meaning he did not understand. "Salith," he began slowly, choosing each word with care. "I need you to explain what this bond actually is. I do not want to disrespect your culture by guessing." She regarded him with quiet approval, as though his request itself met some unspoken standard. "The Lifebond," she said, her voice low and calm, "is not forced. It is not taken. It is offered." She touched the edge of the table with 2 fingers, drawing a small circle on the cloth. When 2 beings share heartfire in the same space, it invites a joining of paths. When one accepts food directly from the other's hand, the invitation strengthens. And when both touch, even briefly, it seals the beginning. Evan felt a knot tighten in his stomach. "So I already started it." "You began the first step," she corrected. "The path continues only if both walk it." Evan leaned back slightly, absorbing her words. There was no pressure in her voice, no hint of expectation, only clarity. The soft pulse of the storm outside threw a faint line of green light across her features, giving her an almost serene glow. "Does this bond change anything between us right now?" he asked. Salith tilted her head, considering the question with seriousness that made him sit straighter. "It changes awareness," she said. Mine toward you. Yours toward me, if you allow it. Awareness of what? Presence, she replied simply. Intention. The way your breath sounds when you are uncertain. The way your thoughts gather before you speak. Evan blinked, unsure whether to be impressed or nervous. That sounds like a lot. It is gentle, Salith said. Not control. Not claim. Only connection. She paused, then added, if both choose. Evan exhaled slowly. He studied her for a moment. The calm posture, the soft movement of her breath, the way the glow from the table lights traced the delicate shifts in color beneath her skin. She was not trying to draw him in. She was not trying to sway him. She was simply telling the truth of her people. What happens, Evan asked carefully, if someone accepts a step without understanding it? Salith lowered her gaze, her expression softening in a way that felt unguarded. Then the other guides, she said. With patience. With honor. She looked up again. And without expectation. A quiet settled over the room, deeper than before. The storm outside had faded into a distant hum, leaving the outpost wrapped in a stillness that felt almost suspended in time. Salith reached out, not touching him, but placing her hand palm up on the table, an offering without demand. Evan Cole, she said softly. You may continue the path, or you may step away. Both are respected. Both are free. He stared at her hand, then at her face. Nothing about her expression pushed him in any direction. No pressure. No urgency. Just an openness that nudged his heartbeat into a calmer rhythm. Evan lifted his hand halfway, then stopped, hovering above hers without touching. I do not know what the right choice is yet, he admitted. Salith nodded once. Then we move slowly, she said. Together or apart. With clarity. The glow of the heartfire fruit brightened for a moment, casting warm violet light across both their hands as they remained suspended between choice and understanding. Evan's hand hovered above Salith's for a long moment that stretched and softened the air around them, but he did not let their palms meet. Instead, he gently lowered his hand back to his side, the motion careful, respectful, and honest. Salith did not flinch. She simply withdrew her hand with a grace that made the gesture feel less like a retreat and more like an acknowledgement of his hesitation. The glow of the heartfire fruit dimmed a little, settling back into its steady pulse. The quiet in the dining chamber grew deeper, touched by the faint hum of the outpost's life support systems and the distant sigh of the storm easing outside. Evan exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. I want to understand this. Truly. I just do not want to rush into something sacred. Salith nodded as though she had expected that answer long before he spoke it. Caution is a form of honor, she said softly. Many mistake speed for sincerity. Evan managed a faint smile. I guess humans and your people share at least that problem. Her eyes warmed, the gold shifting subtly in the glow. Perhaps. She rose from her seat with a fluid motion, her long white hair falling across one shoulder like a pale ribbon. Come, she said. There is something I wish to show you. Evan stood, unsure but curious. He followed her out of the dining chamber and through a narrow hallway that led toward the observation deck. The automatic doors slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a room lined with wide windows that curved overhead, giving a full view of the night sky. The storm clouds had broken apart, leaving trails of glowing ion particles drifting like slow-moving stars. Shades of green, violet, and soft blue shimmered beyond the glass, painting the interior with shifting colors that felt alive. Salith stepped closer to the window, placing her palm lightly against the transparent surface. This world is young, she said quietly. It is still learning its storms, still discovering its voice. Evan joined her, resting his hand near hers on the cold glass, but not touching. It is beautiful, he murmured. Unpredictable, she corrected. Beautiful things often are. The light from outside rippled across her skin, highlighting the iridescent layers beneath the turquoise surface. She looked almost woven from the same colors that swirled in the sky. Evan watched the reflection of her expression in the glass, the thoughtful calm, the slight tightening around her eyes as though she carried a question but had not decided whether to ask it. Salith, he said gently, why did you invite me to share the meal at all? Was it only because I repaired the power regulator? She took a breath, quiet and steady. I invited you because you approached the broken machine with care instead of frustration, she said. Because you spoke to it softly, as if it were alive. Because you treated this outpost with respect, even though it is not your home. Evan blinked, surprised. You noticed all that? Awareness begins before the life bond, she said. I observed you, and I chose to offer a gesture that matters to my people, even without knowing if I would accept it. Especially without knowing, she replied. She turned to face him fully, her golden eyes reflecting the drifting lights outside. A connection forced is meaningless. A connection offered is a seed. It grows only if both nourish it. Evan felt something loosen in his chest, a quiet warmth replacing the tension he had carried since she first spoke of the bond. He looked back out at the glowing sky. Then maybe, he said softly, we can learn at the same pace. Salith considered him for a moment, then gave a small nod. A slow pace, she said, is still a pace together. The colors outside brightened as if agreeing, casting shifting hues over them both as they stood side by side, not touching, but no longer uncertain of the space between them. The shifting colors outside the observation deck softened into pale ribbons that drifted slowly across the night sky, casting calm light over Evan and Salith as they stood side by side. The outpost felt quieter now, as if the storm itself had paused to listen. Evan breathed in the stillness, trying to anchor himself in the moment. Everything about Salith's presence had weight, not in the sense of pressure, but in the way meaningful things carried their own gravity. She looked toward him, the reflection of the sky flickering across her iridescent skin. You are thoughtful, she said. That is not common among visitors. Evan huffed a soft laugh. Well, I try not to break anything important. You have repaired more than you have broken, she replied. Machines respond to patience. So do people. He looked down at his hands, a little embarrassed at the unexpected compliment. I did not think anyone was paying attention, he admitted. I usually just keep things running and stay out of trouble. Salith studied him for a quiet moment. Trouble does not follow those who choose gentleness, she said. You walk with care. It is rare. Evan felt his pulse shift, not faster, but steadier. Salith, he said slowly, may I ask something about your people? She turned slightly, inviting the question without words. When you say awareness begins before the life bond, does that mean you started feeling something before the meal? Her gaze moved back to the sky for a moment, gathering thought like one gathers breath. Awareness is not emotion, she said softly. It is attention. It is noticing the way another exists. She faced him again. I noticed the way you listened to the outpost machines before touching them. The way you spoke to them with familiarity, as though they were old friends. The way you stepped aside for me in the corridor without thinking, even when you were carrying heavy equipment. These things told me you were safe to approach. Evan swallowed lightly. And that led you to invite me to the meal. It led me to offer trust, she corrected. The meal was a gesture. Trust was the root. Evan shifted his weight, the warmth in the room mingling with something quieter inside him. Back home, he said, trust usually builds after a long time. Months. Years sometimes. Time does not decide trust, Salith replied. Behavior does. The simplicity of her words settled deeper than he expected. She stepped forward, closer to the window, and pressed her palm flat against the cool surface. The lights outside responded again, brightening in slow waves as if the sky itself leaned toward her presence. Evan watched her reflection, the faint shimmer under her skin catching every color. She spoke without turning. When I first saw you repairing the regulator, I watched your face. You frowned at the broken parts, but not in anger, only in focus. You did not curse the machine or strike it. You soothed it with words. Evan blinked. I did not realize you heard that. I hear many things, she said, but I pay attention only when it matters. A pause stretched between them, comfortable and quiet. Evan finally moved to stand beside her again, his arm brushing the air near hers, but not touching. I want to keep learning, he said gently, about your people, about this bond, at a pace that feels respectful to both of us. Salith's reflection softened with something close to relief. Then we will learn together, she said. No step taken alone. Outside, the last remnants of the storm drifted upward like glowing ashes rising into the sky, leaving the outpost wrapped in peace. The silence between them felt less like emptiness now and more like the beginning of understanding, steady and unhurried, shaped not by ritual alone, but by two individuals choosing to stand in the same light. The observation deck lights dimmed slightly as the outpost shifted into its late cycle mode, leaving only the glow of the swirling sky to illuminate the room. The colors outside drifted in quiet waves, casting moving ribbons of green and violet across the floor. Evan stood beside Salith, feeling the calm settle over them like a soft blanket. For the first time since the storm began, the outpost felt less like a shelter and more like a place where something real was taking shape. Salith watched the lights outside with a steady gaze. "Your world," she said, "does it have skies like this?" Evan shook his head slowly. "No. The colors back home are quieter. Blues. Oranges. Maybe a pink sunrise if you are lucky. Peaceful," she murmured. "Predictable. Predictable can be nice," Evan said. "Especially when you grow up around machinery. You get used to things behaving the way they should." Salith glanced at him, her golden eyes catching a ripple of green light. "And when they do not behave?" He laughed softly. "Then you repair them. Or try to." She considered that answer, her expression thoughtful in a way that made Evan feel like she was comparing more than just machines. "You repair without frustration," she said. "It is why I trusted you with the heart fire." Evan looked down, still unsure how to respond to the weight of her trust. "I am still trying to figure out what that means," he admitted. "I know," she said gently. "That is why I will show you more." She turned from the window and walked toward a small control panel near the center of the room, her steps quiet against the metal floor. Evan followed her, watching as she pressed her palm lightly against a sensor. The panel responded instantly, unfolding a small holographic display that shimmered in shades of blue and gold. Shapes appeared, circles, lines, and flowing curves that shifted like living diagrams. "These are the stages of connection among my people," she said. "The first is awareness. The second is shared sustenance. The third is understanding." Evan studied the glowing symbols. "Are we in the third stage now?" "Not yet," Salith said. "Understanding must be mutual. It cannot be rushed." The hologram shifted again, this time showing two figures standing side by side, a soft line of light connecting their hands. "This is the stage many misunderstand," she continued. "It is not bonding. It is not promise. It is permission to learn." Evan felt something ease in his chest. "That sounds reasonable." "It is," she said, "but it is also delicate." She touched the hologram, and the line of light between the figures brightened. If one retreats with fear, the connection dims. If one forces, it breaks. But if both remain open, even slowly, the line stays. Evan nodded, absorbing the meaning. "So everything so far has just been the beginning." "Yes," she said softly. "A beginning shaped by choice." The hologram dissolved, leaving only the warm light of the observation deck. Evan stepped back to the window, letting the cool surface steady him. "I want to understand your ways," he said. "I really do. I just do not want to make a mistake that hurts either of us." Salith joined him, standing close enough that he felt the shift of warmth in the air, but not touching. "A mistake made with caution does not wound," she said. "Only carelessness wounds." Evan breathed out, relieved. "I can promise caution." "Then you have already begun understanding," she replied. A soft hum vibrated through the outpost as the systems adjusted, and the colors in the sky brightened, casting gentle light over both of them. Evan felt the moment settle, steady and calm, like a tide finally reaching a quiet shore. Salith's voice lowered, barely above a whisper. "Evan Cole, whatever path we choose, we will choose it with clarity. That is all I ask." And in the shifting glow of the sky, he felt the truth of that settle not as pressure, but as a promise of something patient and growing. The outpost lights flickered once as the systems shifted into their deep cycle mode, signaling the quietest hours of the night. The hum beneath. The floor softened until it was barely a vibration under Evan's boots. He stood beside Salith in the observation deck, watching the last trails of glowing particles drift across the sky like falling embers. The silence between them was calm, steady, almost warm. Then a low chime echoed through the outpost, a soft warning tone that made Salith lift her head sharply. Evan immediately straightened. "What was that?" he asked. Salith stepped toward the nearest control panel, her movements precise. "A fluctuation," she said. "The sensors are detecting a shift beneath the surface." Evan moved beside her, looking over the readings. The screen displayed a cluster of unstable energy pockets deep below the outpost, where the planet's young crust was still forming. Is it dangerous? He asked. Not yet, she said. But we must monitor it. Lyra, 6 grows quickly. Sometimes too quickly. She tapped another sequence, and a secondary screen opened, showing the outpost's geothermal stabilizers. One of them pulsed in a warning shade of yellow. That one is not holding, Evans said. It was stable earlier. The storm may have weakened it, Salith replied. If it fails, the pressure could rise too quickly. Evans' instincts kicked in. I should check it manually. Salith turned toward him, her expression tightening. You cannot go outside. The ground is still charged. Then I will go into the lower bay, he said. The stabilizer's access point is below the main deck. It is insulated. She hesitated, studying him with that unervingly perceptive gaze. You do not have to risk yourself, she said quietly. Awareness does not require sacrifice. This is not sacrifice, Evans said. This is my job. Salith's golden eyes softened, but the concern in them did not fade. If you go, she said, you must let me accompany you. Evan blinked. Salith, it is a maintenance tunnel. It is cramped. It might not even be safe for your physiology. I will adapt, she said simply. I will not let you go alone. Not after the bond has begun its path. Evan opened his mouth to object, but the sincerity in her voice stopped him. She was not insisting out of obligation. She was choosing. All right, he said, but stay behind me. Some of the wiring down there is reactive. They left the observation deck together, moving through the dim corridors lit only by soft blue guide lights along the floor. The deeper they went, the cooler the air became, carrying the faint metallic scent of machinery that had been working under stress. Salith walked close enough that he could feel her presence at his back, a steadying warmth that pushed away the chill of the lower levels. They reached the access hatch, and Evan knelt to unlock it. The metal door slid open with a slow hiss, releasing a wave of cold air that carried the faint smell of heated stone from below. I will go first, Evan said. Watch the step. It is steep. Salith nodded, her expression focused but calm. She followed him down the narrow ladder into the maintenance tunnel, her movements quiet and controlled. The tunnel lights flickered as they descended, casting long shadows along the curved walls. At the bottom, Evan stepped onto the grated floor and moved toward the stabilizer housing. The yellow warning light blinked steadily, reflecting faintly off Salith's iridescent skin as she joined him. The energy output is uneven, she murmured, reading the panel beside him. The storm shifted the resonance pattern. Evan crouched beside the stabilizer, checking the base connectors. If I can realign the primary coil, it should settle. Can I assist? She asked. He looked up at her. She did not seem afraid, only attentive. Present. Yes, he said. Hold the panel open. It sticks. She braced it without effort. Evan reached into the housing, feeling the faint vibrations of unstable energy running through the coil. He worked carefully, adjusting the alignment one small motion at a time. A soft pulse rippled through the tunnel, and Salith spoke quietly. Evan Cole, if the connection between us grows, it will be moments like this that shape it. He paused, looked back at her. Dangerous maintenance work? Shared duty, she corrected. Shared trust. Her voice was steady, but the light in her eyes held something deeper. Something that made Evan's heartbeat settle into a slower, calmer rhythm as he tightened the final adjustment. The stabilizer's warning light blinked once, then shifted from yellow to green. The pressure readings smoothed. The outpost sighed with relief, a soft hum returning to its usual rhythm. Evan pulled his hand back and exhaled. It is stable again. Salith lowered the panel gently. Then we return, she said. But she did not move immediately. Instead, she watched him with a quiet intensity. You stepped into danger without hesitation, she said. You placed yourself between the outpost and harm. That is the third stage. Evan frowned slightly. Understanding. Salith nodded slowly. Understanding through action, through choice made freely. The tunnel lights flickered, catching the faint shimmer beneath her skin. Evan held her gaze. Then I guess we move to the next step together. Salith's breath softened. Together, she echoed. And for a moment, the quiet around them felt almost sacred. The walk back through the maintenance tunnel was quieter than before, not because there was nothing to say, but because the air between Evan and Salith had shifted into something more deliberate. The stabilizer hummed steadily behind them now, its repaired rhythm echoing softly along the metal walls. Salith climbed the ladder first this time, ascending with smooth movements that caught and reflected the faint blue lights along the rungs. Evan followed, feeling the cool grip of the metal under his palms and the lingering calm of their shared work settling into his chest. When they stepped back into the main corridor, the outpost felt warmer, as if the systems themselves recognized the restored balance. A soft current of air drifted through the vents, carrying the clean metallic scent that always signaled returning stability. Salith paused, turning slightly toward Evan. "You repaired more than the stabilizer," she said. "You steadied the ground beneath us." Evan rubbed the back of his neck, unsure how to respond without embarrassing himself. "I just did what anyone with basic training would do." "No," she said. "Many with training act without thought. You act with intention." He met her gaze, surprised again by how deeply she seemed to read him. "I guess I have always been careful," he said. "Machines do not take well to being rushed." "Neither do bonds," she replied. They walked side by side toward the upper levels, passing through the narrow corridors lit by gentle guide lights. The storm outside had weakened to a soft glow, sending faint waves of color through the windows, as if the sky itself were breathing slower now. When they reached the central chamber, Salith stopped. She faced him fully, the shifting light washing over her iridescent skin. "There is something I have not yet told you," she said quietly. Evan's breath caught. Her tone was not fearful, but weighted, like she was choosing each word with precision. "The Lifebond," she continued, "is not merely a ritual of my people. It is also rare for us." Evan frowned slightly. "Rare? How so?" "We do not offer it often," she said. "We do not invite lightly." She stepped closer, not touching him, but close enough that he could feel the gentle warmth radiating from her skin. "My kind lives long. We choose very slowly. But when we choose," she paused, her eyes lowering for the first time since he had met her. "We choose with our whole life." Evan felt the weight of that settle into him, not as pressure, but as truth. He spoke softly. "Salith, if this bond is so important, why offer it to someone you barely know?" She lifted her gaze, the gold in her eyes shimmering with a quiet vulnerability he had not seen before. "Because I do not feel time the way you do," she said. "I feel patterns. I feel intention. And yours aligns with mine in ways I did not expect." Evan's heartbeat steadied, deepening rather than racing. "I am honored," he said truthfully. "But I am also human. I need time to understand what this means for both of us." "That is the part you do not understand," she replied gently. "You are already closer to understanding than most who share my blood." The outpost lights dimmed slightly, shifting to a soft golden glow that flickered like candlelight. It wrapped the chamber in warmth, highlighting the quiet sincerity in her face. "There is one more truth," she said. "One more part of the bond." Evan inhaled slowly. "I am listening." Salith stepped close enough that their reflections merged faintly in the window beside them. "The final stage is revelation," she whispered. "And the truth is this, Evan Cole. You were not the only one who began a path tonight. I did as well." He held her gaze, the air between them still and meaningful. "What path is that, Salith?" She answered without hesitation, her voice soft but unwavering. "The path toward choosing you." Evan did not speak at first. The words Salith had just offered were still settling, quiet and deliberate, like a stone dropped gently into deep water. The chamber around them hummed in a soft, steady rhythm, and the dim lights cast faint halos around every reflective surface. Outside the window, the last traces of the storm drifted upward in slow spirals, glowing like scattered embers rising into the darkness. Salith stood very still, waiting with the patience of someone who had lived long enough to understand the weight of silence. Her golden eyes reflected the soft lights of the outpost, the faintest shimmer beneath the surface revealing a tension she did not show anywhere else. It was not fear. It was hope wrapped inside restraint. Evan stepped closer, not because he felt obligated, but because her honesty drew him forward like a warm current. He stopped within arm's reach, aware of the gentle pull in the air between them, subtle but present, like two magnetic fields aligning. "Salith," he said quietly, "you choosing me, that is not something I take lightly. But I do not want to answer out of pressure or confusion. I want to answer with clarity. The same clarity you asked from me." She nodded, relief flickering across her features even though she had expected nothing less. "Clarity takes time," she said. And time is something I have. I will not hold you faster than you can walk. Evan exhaled softly. Then let me walk at the pace I can understand. I will match it, she replied. Without moving closer, she shifted her posture just slightly, enough that her form caught the soft golden glow along the lines of her iridescent skin. For a moment, they simply breathed in the same quiet space, the atmosphere calm in a way that felt earned. Evan turned his gaze to the window, watching a thin streak of violet drift upward through the dark sky. What happens now? He asked. Salith stepped beside him, her presence calm and assured. Now, she said, there is a final choice. Evan frowned gently. A choice about what? About whether we close the circle, she answered. The life bond does not become complete until both choose it freely. You have taken the first steps. I have taken mine. But the circle closes only if we touch with intention. Evan felt the meaning settle deeply. Touch with intention, he repeated. She nodded. Not possession, not claim, only acknowledgement. A shared moment that says, we choose to continue this path together. It is not binding. It is not permanent. It is simply acceptance of the beginning. Evan turned back to her. The glow from the sky painted her features in soft hues, and for the first time he noticed something almost fragile in the way she looked at him. Not weakness, but openness. Deep, sincere openness. He slowly raised his hand halfway, mirroring the choice she had offered earlier. Salith inhaled softly, the light in her eyes deepening with understanding. Evan hovered his hand in the space between them, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from her skin. I do not know where this path goes, he said quietly, but I know I want to take the next step with you. Salith lifted her own hand, matching his movement with perfect stillness. Their palms hovered a breath apart, the air between them charged with a quiet energy that felt almost like the soft hum of the stabilizer they had repaired together. Evan let his hand drift forward until his palm met hers, warm against warm, steady against steady. A soft pulse rippled through the room, almost inaudible, as if the outpost itself recognized the moment. Salith's eyes softened, her voice dropping to a whisper. The circle is closed. They stood like that for a long, quiet moment, palms touching, breath steady. The bond between them no longer a question, but a beginning neither had been expecting, and both had chosen in their own way. Outside, the last thread of the storm vanished into the night sky, leaving only stillness and the faint glow of a world learning how to grow. And in that quiet, with hands joined and intentions clear, Evan finally understood what Salith meant when she said that some connections do not rely on time, but on choice.